Once upon a time, in a beautiful village of Akure, there was a boy whose name was Damola. He was a son of a farmer and helped his father in the farm a lot. His father was so proud of him and boasted about him to other farmers. Damola was diligently committed to making his father's crops flourish, and as a result, they always had bountiful harvest each year. Some other farmers in Akure began to get envious of their rich harvest. Damola's father, Kunle, used to have a friend whose name was Dayo. Dayo always pretended to be happy with his friend's success in his farming career, but deep down in his heart, he wasn't happy for him at all. Whenever Kunle, Damola's father, boasted about his son's hardworking to Dayo, Dayo would be annoyed and felt as if his friend was mocking him. So he decided to teach Kunle a lesson. During the harvest of this particular year, Dayo paid a group of bad boys to go and harvest Kunle's crops at night. That year, Damola and his father were left with very small harvest. The following year, Dayo repeated the same thing. Then he went to Kunle and told him that he saw his son Damola in the market selling a large quantity of his harvested crops. Kunle was furious and paced up and down his compound in anger. As soon as Damola came back home in the evening, his father confronted him with the allegation. Damola was shocked and tried to make his father understand that he did no such thing, but his father didn't give him the opportunity to defend himself. He accused him of stealing his crops from the farm and selling them in the market. He beat him up and threw him out of his house. Damola was heartbroken as he left his father's house and traveled to another village called Ore. There in Ore, he found a lonely old lady who took him in, adopted him, and treated him like her own son. Damola grew into a handsome young man, but he remained hardworking and took care of the old lady who had adopted him. And they lived in peace and love for so many years. One day, she called Damola to the back of the house and showed him a tree. "This tree is very medicinal," she said, "and it can cure any sickness or disease. When I'm no longer here with you, use that tree to heal those who are in need of healing. One day, that tree will make you a very rich man." Damola hugged her mother and begged her not to leave him lonely, but she advised him to try and get married as soon as possible. She also assured him that he was going to be okay without her. She took Damola to all her farmlands and showed him the boundaries and encouraged him to remain hardworking. A few days later, she passed on to glory and Damola was left heartbroken. He mourned for so many weeks and eventually decided to try and settle down, just as his mother had advised him. So he set out to find a wife and sat under a tree one cool evening and saw a beautiful girl coming his way. As he tried to talk to her, she just snubbed him and went her way. Damola really liked this girl and kept coming to that same spot every day, hoping to get her attention. He eventually succeeded and felt very happy when the girl brought him a loaf of bread, thinking that he was homeless. She advised him to come and take up a job as a farm laborer in her father's farm, and Damola agreed. He wanted to use that opportunity to get close to her and get to know her better. Damola followed the girl to her father's house and took up a job as a farm laborer. There he learned that her name was Gold. Her father was a very rich man and Gold was his only daughter. Damola behaved himself very wisely. He was very respectful, dedicated to his job, and full of charms. Gold's father was soon full of praises for him and respected him a lot. Gold also found herself falling helplessly for Damola. Her feelings for him grew stronger every day. When Damola noticed that Gold has developed feelings for him, he approached her father and declared his intention to marry Gold. But his master considered it an insult that Damola would have the guts to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage. "What makes you consider yourself worthy to be my son-in-law?" His voice raged. "I can see that I have given you too many privileges. and it has gotten into your head. I can't give out my only daughter in marriage to a nobody like you." Afterwards, Damola noticed that his master's attitude towards him changed from being friendly to being harsh and impatient. After several attempts to please him failed, Damola resigned from his job and returned to his own home, dejected and alone. However, he had saved up enough money while he was working for Gold's father, and he used the money to renovate the house which he had inherited from his mother. Meanwhile, Gold had begged one of her father's workers to follow Damola and find out where he lived. She had cried in secret for so many days after Damola left, but one day she summoned the courage to go and look for Damola. Damola was pleasantly surprised to see Gold in his home and welcomed her warmly. He asked how she was able to trace him, and Gold told him how she had begged one of her father's workers to follow him the day he had left. Damola became convinced beyond doubt that Gold really loved him. They chatted for hours as Damola prepared a very delicious meal for them to eat. Eventually, Gold took her leave and promised to visit Damola as often as she could. Days went by, but Gold didn't come back. Damola was worried, but he knew it was better not to go back to his former master's house. So, he decided to focus on working in his farmlands. Because the land was too large for him to handle alone, Damola hired some laborers who worked for him in the farm. One day, one of his workers fell ill and collapsed in the farm. Damola was so terrified, afraid that he might pass on. Then he remembered the healing tree his mother had told him about and ran home. He plucked a few of the leaves, ran back to the farm, squeezed out some liquid, and dropped it into the mouth of the sick man. Instantly, he became healed, and everyone in the farm was amazed. Few weeks after that event, the king of Ore village fell ill and became epileptic. That ailment became a source of reproach to both the king and the entire people of Ore village. So, the king declared that whoever is able to find a cure for that ailment will be given half of his kingdom. All the famous healers in Ore village tried their best, but no one could cure the king of that ailment. Then, the farmer who had fallen ill remembered his encounter with Damola and ran to the palace. He narrated his encounter with Damola and assured the king that Damola would be able to cure his ailment. The king, being desperate for a solution to his problem, sent his envoy to go and bring Damola immediately. Damola knew why he was being summoned by the king, so he went with a special leave. As soon as he arrived in the palace, he administered the medicine on the king and he became instantly healed. There was an uproar of jubilation in the entire Ore kingdom, and Damola became very popular in the entire Ore village. The king fulfilled his promise and gave Damola half of his kingdom and made him a prince in Ore kingdom. When Gold's father heard about all this, he became troubled and regretted his actions against Damola. He sent some of his servants to inform Damola that he could now come and do the necessary things needed to take Gold as his wife. But Damola told his messengers that he was no longer interested in marrying Gold. Then his former master came to Damola by himself and apologized to him for looking down on him. Damola was a kind-hearted person and genuinely accepted his apology. As for marrying Gold, he told him to give him time to think about it. A few days later, Gold came by herself and told Damola that it was her father who had forbidden her from ever coming to see Damola as she had promised. Then he told her that he was sorry, and Damola accepted her apology, and they began a courtship that lasted for a couple of months. Damola and Gold had an elaborate wedding attended by dignitaries from far and wide, and they lived a blissful married life afterward. Damola, however, remembered his father and decided to go and pay him a visit. When he got to Akure, he found his father very sick and totally worn out. Damola took his frail hand and introduced himself, since his father seemed not to have recognized him. Damola His father was shocked as he raised himself from his sick bed and took a closer look at his son. Soon, tears began to run down his face as he apologized to Damola and told him how much he had missed him. "I'm sorry for accusing you wrongly," he said. "Dayo, my friend, deceived me into believing that you were responsible for the crops that were stolen from my farm." Damola took a deep breath and told his father that he had forgiven him already, otherwise he wouldn't be here with him right now. However, he informed his father that he was going to take revenge on Dayo for causing him so much pain. But his father told him not to worry. "Karma has already taken care of him," he said. "He took over all my farmlands after I took ill, and one day, while working on the farm, he was bitten by a mysterious snake and he died instantly." Damola smiled and nodded. Karma has really taken care of him. Damola took his father back to Ore village and healed him of his sickness. He also took care of him until his death so many years later. Damola's life with his wife Gold continued to flourish, and they lived in peace and harmony. The lesson learned from this story is that envy is very destructive, and sometimes some things that happens in our lives are meant to elevate us. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share. Thank you.